Ain't no half step on Marcus J, live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Thank y'all to everybody that's rocking with us. Thank you to Facebook Live for staying in the Den with us. We appreciate y'all for continuing to listen to the flagship show of Legacy Internet Radio. 804-402-2893. That's the number to dial if you want to be a part of the live show. If you want to call in, hear your voice. I do the show just because I like to hear my voice. I'm guessing that y'all want to hear y'all voices as well. Facebook Live, 804-402-2893 is the number to dial as we progress throughout tonight. I'm going to turn the show over. This portion of the show is going to be led by our sister Journey. And I look forward to, we had a little bit of a tease a couple of weeks ago on our sister Marie Laveau, but I'm feeling like we're getting ready to get a whole lot more. So, floor is yours, sister. What are we doing?
Alrighty, so I'm going to, in a few minutes, take you guys back to 1881, the day of Marie Laveau's last breath. But before that, I just want to talk a little bit about why I became so obsessed with this particular being. As I stated earlier, I am a medium, spiritual, I don't know, gift from God I guess. And I was always looking for, I was raised in like a very spiritual home, very Christian background. My mom was a minister, you know, and I realized I could see things, you know, people just being there. And one day I went to her and I said, I'm seeing these people. I dreamt my uncle's death, and she said, you have the gift of prophecy, and God's going to use you. And I'm 8 years old, and I don't know what this is. And I go to sleep one night, and I have this dream. And I hear all of this commotion. There's a tent. And I'm used to tents because when you're a Christian, you go to tent services in the summertime. And I see this tent, and there's all these, like, glows from flames. And I hear these drums, and this little girl comes to me, and she has on like what would look like slave attire for a little girl, tatted dress, and she pulled me to the front. She never said anything. She just pulled me to the front. And when I got to the front, I saw these women, and they had on these beautiful long skirts, and they were white, and their hair was wrapped in garb. And they were dancing, they were chanting, and there were men beating drums. And every time they twirled and hit the floor, their dresses would engulf into flames. And, you know, of course I woke up paranoid. I'm like, what is this? And nobody could ever explain it to me until I started reaching out to people that were outside of the Christian faith, more on a spiritual level. And I met a girl from Trinidad who practiced Santeria, which I actually practice, which is a West African Cuban cultural religion or faith. And she told me that this was my destiny, that dream was a message from the spirits, you know, telling me what my life path was gonna be. So when I found out about Marie Laveau, it just kind of connected the two for me, and I tried to grab everything. And there's not a lot. I know Marcus hyped it up like I was gonna give you this whole encyclopedia, but there's not a lot about her. But I will say she was the Harriet Tubman of the spiritual world. You know, some say she was a spy. Some say that she actually hid, you know, unfree slaves, because she was a free slave. She was a mulatto, free woman of color. So she was able to go about. So they said that she set up roots, just like Harriet Tubman did, to help our people. So that made me even more interested in knowing who she was. So I'm going to just read this little excerpt that I found online, and it's pretty much just the newspapers covering her death, and it'll just give you a little bit about her and her journey. So, newspapers cover the passing of Marie Laveau. The death of Marie Laveau, a woman of wonderful history, almost a century old, carried to the tomb yesterday evening. Those who have passed by the quaint old house in St. Anne, between Rampart and Burgundy Streets, with the high frail-looking fence in front over a tree which is too visible, has been seen within the last 2 years. Notice few, an open gateway, a decrepit old lady with snow-white hair, and a smile of peace and contentment lighting up her golden features. For a few years had passed, and she had been missed from her accustomed place. The feeble old lady laid upon her bed, with her daughter and grandchildren around her ministering to her wants. On Wednesday, the invalid slipped into a deep sleep. which there was no waking. Those whom she had befriended crowded into a little room where she was exposed. In order to obtain the last look at the features, smiling even at death, of her who had been so kind to them. At 5 o'clock yesterday evening, Marie Laveau was buried in her family's tomb in St. Louis Cemetery, number 1. Her remains were followed to the grave by a large concourse of people, the most prominent and the most humbling, joining her to pay their respects for the dead. Marie Laveau was born 98 years ago. Her father was a rich planter who was prominent in his public affairs. He served the legislature in his state, and that's the state of Louisiana. Her mother was Marguerite Henry, and her grandmother was Marguerite Samuel. They were all free women of color, and they were all mulatto. And back then when you were mulatto, you got more privilege than us of the beautiful, darker nature. Not that we're not all beautiful, but back then. So she was promised to a white man, and they actually, they had these mulatto balls where you were promised to a white man, but that doesn't necessarily mean you could marry them. And she actually was married. She was mulatto, yes. And she was able to marry a white man, and that made her even more prominent. So she was able to go amongst the people, the more higher socialites, and do her magic. Because basically she was a Obia woman, a voodoo woman. And, back then people would buy into anything. The circus would come into town and they wanted to see the freaks. So to them, here's this woman that could pass for us and she could do magic. We're really going to use her. So she had to prove herself. So her and her daughters opened up this little curio shop and they decided to, start doing what they do. And she was actually doing magic, like literally doing spells for presidents and for senators and people of really high establishments. In return, you have to hide these people for me. You have to allow my people for their birthright to, she was actually freeing the slaves. She was doing her thing. And in the meantime, getting what she wanted. Because us spiritual people here know that when you pray, even Christians or whatever you believe in a higher power, if you ask for it, it will come. If you pray hard enough, it will manifest itself into light. And that's what she pretty much did up until her death. She took in the homeless. She pretty much was a saint, and that's how they view her. Even to this day, it is said if you go to Cemetery number 1, Lewis Cemetery in New Orleans, and mark 3 X's on her grave, that you will have a life of wealth, peace, love, and power, basically. And people were doing that to the point where they were desecrating the grave, and they stopped you from being able to do that. But a lot of people honor her. They actually have a Marie Laveau parade in New Orleans every year in the French Quarter. So this woman did the damn thing for us, excuse my language, and she brought voodoo to light. And I just want to give you a little history, because a lot of Christian folks and Catholics and all that, they think voodoo is of the devil, and it really isn't. It's just pretty much based on what comes from our ancestral background, because we were actually taught Christianity when we were brought here. It was not our actual faith. So I'm gonna just get a little bit about that. Louisiana voodoo is distinguishedly different from Haitian voodoo. It is a fusion of religious and magical practices found today in southern United States. So pretty much when they split the tribes and we all got put in different places, they named it different things: Ifa, Yoruba, Santeria, Palo. So but they all originated in Africa. So wherever you ended up, whatever continent you ended up on, it took a different form, but it was all the same. So when Marie Laveau got her hands on it, just like the Santeros, they used the Catholic saints to disguise the orishas or the magic that they were doing in order for them to be able to continue practicing. So each Catholic saint is a representation of an orisha or a voodoo god or goddess. So I thought that was pretty cool that we were able to still defeat the system and do what was necessary to do. And I think that's relevant even in today, with everything that's going on. We have the ability, if we come together, prayer for me will work wonders if we all did that, but to call on a higher power to get things done. And I think that's what she did. So I just thought that she would be somebody interesting to talk about, hence why we're talking about her.
No, I think that's real dope. I mean, to hear your passion as you speak about her, especially once you say Obeah woman, my eyes perked up, because someone like myself who's very fascinated with Caribbean culture, for those folks who may not be familiar, the Obeah has a negative connotation when they speak of spirits, and they think of the boogeyman and the duppy man and all that, the duppy, all that kind of stuff. But when you hear of the culture, not in a negative connotation, when you speak of it as the factual, that's when it's like really kind of touching. Let me ask you a question. How did you like, you kind of alluded to a little bit, but give me a little bit more in depth. Like, how did you discover her, and what made you like really, really want to go hard and learning so much about her?
Okay, so I'm a nerd. I watch like the History Channel, HGTV, and all that. And one day they did this special on her, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't know who she was. So one day my friend and I, when we moved to Virginia, we went to the slave trails, and we literally kind of just like tuned in what we felt. We could hear the dogs barking and the chain shuffling. So we ended up at the library, the Virginia Library, and they have this genealogy section. And everybody always used to tell her she kind of favored Marie Laveau. So we were like, how is that weird that we just saw this and now people are telling you look like her? So we actually traced to find out that her Bowie name is a direct descendant of Marie Laveau's bloodline. So that just made me even more interested, and then the fact that our people did such miraculous things and back then, and it just amazed me that a woman had so much power wherein otherwise they thought we were nothing. So I think that's what really led me to her. And then I think when you're spiritual, we're all a tribe and we're all connected, and I think we're all just being brought back to a central place so that we can all do what we're ordained to do. And I think I said that in the Halloween show.
Right.
There's a loss of feminine energy in this world, and I think that's what the problem is. So I think it's necessary for these forums, not negating the men at all, but we have a responsibility as well to you and our children and our birthrights and our legacies. So I think it's important for us to know about the Marie Laveaus and the Michelle Obamas and all those things, because it's what makes us who we are.
Yeah. No, I think that it's outstanding that you make that point, because oftentimes those kinds of things are lost. There's no value placed on history and historical figures the way it used to be and the way it should be, especially in the age of quick information and not taking the time to study and learn, whereas the way you spit that out, I mean, you kind of peeked at a note, but like you was off the dome with it, and it was fascinating to me to watch your oratory and to watch your passion in speaking about our sister Marie Laveau, because she needs to be honored, and folks who are listening to us, whether they're in this room or they're in cyber space, the internet, hopefully someone has been inspired to go and learn even more about our sister, because, that's the only way we grow, man. We got to know where we come from to be able to progress.
Yeah, I'm so happy you came here with her story. I actually had an experience with Marie Laveau before I knew whoever Marie Laveau was, and we talked about last week. I was like, where did this information come from? But
and she actually has a connection.
No,
but her bloodline actually has a connection as well, and I think that she was being sent that message. So when it's different, I think that we don't recognize people like Marie Laveau because you hear voodoo and you hear magic, and a lot of us were.
You check out.
Yeah, I don't think brainwashed, but we were taught not that's taboo, that's wrong.
Yeah.
But everybody wasn't doing dark magic. It's like a yin and a yang. There's a dark and a light with everything. I don't care what faith you believe in. There's a good and an evil, and they both have to exist in order, for you to have full knowledge of everything, especially self. So for me, you don't hear about her because she was the voodoo priestess. But I like that it's people like us that will take the time to delve in and investigate who she was. And I'm sure there's more to the story. I am dying to go to Louisiana, so anybody want to go?
Yes.
On a ghost hunt with
Yes.
me? I'm down. I'm ready.
Yes.
Ain't no half step on Marcus J live from the den. Legacy Internet Radio. She slipped in the back of the room right there. She's been sitting and joining us for the last few minutes. She's our angel communicator. Our sister Ashley is in the room. What's up, Ash?
How you guys doing? It's good to be here.
It's good.
So I wanted to say something real quick, how they were talking about dark and light magic. But people don't understand, it's almost all religions have magic in them. And we just don't want to call it that. But since this is a Christian country, prayer is actually a form of magic. And then when you put the candles on your birthday cake and you make a wish, that is a form of magic. Ladies, we go to these vision board parties and we create vision boards. Sometimes we create vision boards on our Pinterest account. That's a form of magic. So magic isn't always what we think it is, like, oh, I'm going to, put the spices in the bowl and, put the sage on me, and then use a wizard and a wand. That's true. Some people do that, but that's not always magic. Sometimes magic is just prayer.
That's it.
Really, and then I know in some of these churches they say you have to speak things to existence. That's magic. You're speaking it. That's just like giving a spell, really. So that's all.
Johnny?
I just wanted to piggyback. Hey, Ashley. I lost my thought because I was so excited to see you. I was going to say that a lot of people don't know that the Psalms that are in the Bible are actually spells. And there's a book called the Book of Psalms. I think the lady's name is Anna Renna, but I'll find out before the end of the show to let you guys know. It is a heaven-sent guide. Even if you're having a hard day, court case, whatever, there are daily affirmations in it, but there are also ways of using the Psalms to pretty much get what you need.
Ain't no half-stepping with Marcus J, live from the Den. Legacy Internet Radio, we're getting a hit in Facebook Live from our sister Vicky J. She is the host of the Friday night show here on Legacy Internet Radio, the Woke Squad. Shout out to our sister Vicky J, who is checking in with us and the crew. Ain't no half-stepping with Marcus J, live from the Den. Legacy Internet Radio, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what we saw last night. We looked up in the sky. It wasn't a bird or a plane, but it was a supermoon. Be back in a few, y'all. Stay with us.
Yes.
Is my mic on? Oh, okay. Legacy Internet Radio. It's your girl, the First Lady, comedianess, Lissa P. Ow, ow! Make sure you're tuned in to the #1 internet radio station around, Legacy Internet Radio. Be sure to check out our website at www.legacyinternetradio.com, or you can download the free TuneIn app. Go to the search, type in Legacy Internet Radio, and there you'll have us. Legacy Internet Radio,